Los Angeles, California. With 13 million people and over 1,000 emergencies a day, it's often referred to as the local news capital of the world. Video journalists have captured an unbelievable catalog of events.
To see what our members had to endure is very difficult.
This is almost like a movie. It's hard to believe that this was real life.
With our first on-scene heroes' perspectives, this is an insight into their most thrilling moments. In this episode, the streets become a playground for dangerous games.
These people are going crazy. They're hanging out the windows of fast-moving cars while they're doing donuts.
A deadly mass shooting.
This incident is probably the most tragic shooting that California has ever seen.
And a firefighter faces a worst-case scenario.
There's a firefighter running down the street on fire.
Gun violence is an ever-present threat to Los Angeles police, and brave officers often willingly go into situations that they may not come home from.
It's really tough to tell these stories when an officer is down. Oftentimes, it's like the wild, wild west out here in Los Angeles. It's scary for these officers.
In my career, I have been shot at before, yes. It scares the living daylights out of you.
It's 11:30 p.m., and officers have been called to South LA to respond to their worst nightmare. An officer has been shot.
I know this story really well. I actually shot this story. I was listening to the radio and all I heard was an officer needs help call come across. And that usually means something serious is going on.
Shannon and police rush to the scene.
A man pulled up in a car. Officers got eye contact and he looked across and he shot a rifle out the window and got the officer in the neck.
This situation is terrifying. You hear the call, officer needs help, and he says that he was shot, so you need to get there as fast as you can, as safely as you can, so that you're a good resource when you do get there.
When I got to the scene, I saw a police officer standing on the side of the road with his hand up on his neck. He was leaning up against the car. Now, fortunately enough for this police officer who got shot through the window of the car, it was actually a pellet gun.
This officer is lucky not to have been shot with a real bullet, but the situation is taken extremely seriously.
Pellet guns can be still lethal. They can still kill people. This guy got shot in the neck. It pierced a hole in his neck. He was transported to hospital.
The gunshot hasn't caused life-threatening damage, and the officer is transported to the hospital to treat his neck wound.
But whether it's a pellet gun or a real gun, police aren't going to take that. They're going to go into full tracking mode. They're going to hunt down this guy. Shooting a police officer or a member of law enforcement or first responder with a pellet gun, you would be charged with the same crime as attempted murder with a real gun.
A pellet gun is still a weapon that was used against an officer to cause harm, so it is going to be taken seriously.
The police deploy all resources to find the shooter, bringing in the K-9 unit to track the suspect down.
After 6 hours, the K-9 units actually found the guy hiding under a vehicle in a basement garage. But what came to light later on was the guy wasn't actually the shooter. His passenger in the back seat had the rifle and got away. He was later arrested and charged.
The massive police effort, which includes over 100 officers and 2 air units, result in the shooter being charged and put behind bars. The sheer volume of emergency calls made every night in Los Angeles sometimes makes deciding which stories are worth chasing a tough call for news journalists.
As a cameraman, we were always looking for something that's visually appealing.
You know, some things that can make it on a slow night won't make it on a busy night. And what makes for a busy night is death and destruction.
So it could be a big structure fire, water rescue maybe, or even a crash like this where people are completely covered in paint.
Traffic collisions are common, but this is a bit of an uncommon one. It looks like a huge flock of pigeons flew over.
It was a hit and run. Pickup truck gets rear-ended, paint everywhere, all over the street, all over the victims, the driver, everybody's covered in paint, and it looks great.
Somebody has a really big mess to clean up. I feel really bad for that guy. I'm glad he's okay, but he's gonna have paint in his hair that's gonna be hard to get out. It's just everywhere.
I mean, there's a rule in the news industry that if it bleeds, it leads. But obviously there's some exceptions. Shooting this is a couple of other cameramen around just looking at it thinking, yeah, it's not really worth the news. Well, we had a different approach. So we take that footage, we sent it to the stations, and then it just blows up. I'm like, when did this happen? What time? Was there any injuries? We're getting phone calls from the stations. Turning something that's really not a story into a story is something we have to excel at. We put it out, and we made actually a fair bit of money on this.
Thankfully, the victim suffers only minor injuries, but his car needs a new paint job. Coming up, a devastating mass shooting.
You know, I've been in a lot of situations, but nothing like this.
But first, a trip to the grocery store gone wrong.
And look up and there's a car plowing straight through the front of the supermarket with an old man getting out.
Woodland Hills is nestled in the Santa Monica Mountains, northwest of Los Angeles, a typically quiet neighborhood.
For a cameraman, whenever we hear a call come out of a vehicle versus a structure, that's what we chase.
A distracted driver has reversed straight through the front door of this local grocery store.
This is going to be a newsworthy story.
This is a classic situation of someone being too complacent or not paying attention to what they're doing. You think you're in drive, and you're not. You're in reverse, and you accidentally go backwards into the grocery store.
I mean, how would the people feel inside the supermarket? They're all of a sudden doing their shopping and they look up and there's a car plowing straight through the front of the supermarket with an old man getting out. There could be severe injuries. Law enforcement and fire department paramedics are going to take this very seriously.
This is a very high traffic area, so to think about, you know, just kind of the odds, you know, that nobody was injured is pretty remarkable.
In the end, a firefighter got behind the wheel of the car and drove it out of the supermarket.
Miraculously, there are no injuries to any bystanders.
It's quite possible it's time for him to stop and just catch a ride next time.
Mass shootings are a persistent and growing problem across the United States. Their random nature makes them an extremely difficult and potentially deadly scenario for law enforcement.
Active shooter situations are something that officers train for. That is the worst call that an officer can go to. This incident is probably the most tragic shooting that California has ever seen.
I've been in a lot of situations, but nothing like this. It's hard for me to talk about. I mean, it's extremely hard. for me to talk about.
It's 11 p.m., and video journalist Howard is following a story in Hollywood when a call on the radio catches his attention.
Is a 25-year-old male possibly armed? Code to incident 3889.
I thought it was a drill. I could hear shots fired, deputy down, multiple injuries, active shooter.
A shooter has opened fire inside a college bar, and there are reports of multiple casualties.
I mean, my cameraman Joel was there as it was going on, as it was happening, as those shots were being fired. He was right there, and I couldn't get hold of him. I'm calling and I'm calling and I'm calling him. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Is he okay? Does he need help? You know, maybe this is not just a news story. Maybe this is something that's going to change my life.
While Howard races halfway across the city, his cameraman Joel is on scene, dangerously close to the action and documenting the tragedy.
Everyone was hanging out. All of a sudden we heard a bunch of shots, obviously from a semi-automatic rifle. The police showed up, 3 of them went to the door. Currently there's 1 officer down as they were breaching the front entrance.
Everything is extremely chaotic. You have civilians everywhere, you have injured parties, you have an officer down. This is an extremely dangerous situation for all parties involved, including the cameraman.
Hey, camera guy, go!
There is no safe distance per se to have the cameraman be able to get this footage and still be safe from gunfire.
Joel keeps his camera trained on the bar while police enter the building to confront the shooter. Suddenly, gunfire erupts from inside the building.
I pull up, it's mayhem. There is people running all over the place, there's people bleeding, there's first responders screaming in from every angle, FBI's arriving. I mean, it is just pandemonium. The first thing I did when I got there, seeing all this chaos, was hoping that my guy is okay. Couldn't find his car. He still wouldn't answer his phone. I'm starting to panic a little bit, in all honesty.
Coming up.
This was an absolute tragic and horrific story to tell.
Northwest of Los Angeles and Thousand Oaks, a shooter has opened fire in a college bar. Camera operator Joel has found himself dangerously close to the active shooter.
I've been in a lot of situations, but nothing like this. I mean, my cameraman Joel was there as it was happening, as those shots were being fired. And I couldn't get hold of him. I'm starting to panic a little bit, in all honesty. I'm running to the scene as I'm being passed by SWAT and sheriffs and guys with machine guns. All of a sudden, I see my guy coming towards me, and he's white as a ghost, and he's emotional. He comes towards me, gives me a hug, he's upset. He couldn't believe what he'd got on tape.
The cameraman got amazing video of the incident, victims being carried out of the business and treated, to the actual gun battle unfolding on his camera.
I mean, my first instinct is, he's alive, he needs a hug. We hugged it out, told him I loved him, and that we were gonna get through this together. took a few minutes. I grabbed my camera and I went back out there. Let's do our job. Go out there, tell the story, and get it on the news.
This was an absolute tragic and horrific story to tell. These were young, innocent lives who were out one night celebrating, and they were killed. My heart broke in pieces for many different reasons, but specifically for the parents of these young lives that were taken way too soon.
The perpetrator used smoke bombs to create confusion before creating a night of terror for these clubgoers.
Yeah, I gotta talk to you later, okay?
You become emotionally involved, and you almost want to just be there comforting the others that are there as well.
I know what gunshots sound like, and heard it go off and instantly knew. Shooting kept going, they were throwing smoke bombs. I just ran as far as I could, as fast as I could.
There are 12 fatalities and at least 10 others injured, including law enforcement. The shooter is found dead when police officers finally secure the scene.
Personally, I struggle with these active shooter situations. I'm a father now. To put myself in that situation is not worth it. But these stories need to be told.
Los Angeles, California is known for its picturesque beaches and the home of the famous Santa Monica Pier. It's 3:30 a.m., and just south of the pier at Dockwellers Beach, 3 men have been spotted disturbing one of LA's most innocent residents, 2 baby sea lions.
Who would steal baby sea lion pups? Whenever I do a story that harms animals or children, I take it personally. It's upsetting, and it's hard to tell as well.
According to witnesses, the 4 suspects put the sea lion in a blanket and wrapped it up and threw it in the trunk, then drove off. The sea lion's never been seen again.
And who knows where this little baby sea lion is? In their bathtub?
It's unclear why these men are so interested in the pups. Though one of the sea lions was lost to the thieves, the second one escaped.
And as you can see, Animal Control rescued it and took it to a safer place.
Well, hello, cutie. So adorable.
When you see a story like this, what comes to my mind, and after reporting for so many years, is I think it was just like teenage kids pranking, and they don't understand what they could potentially be doing to these poor sea lions.
While this sea lion is secured by the team from Marine Rescue, the search for his brother continues, and the crime is considered a federal offense. Coming up,
there's a firefighter running down the street on fire.
But first,
these people are going crazy. They're hanging out the windows of fast-moving cars while they're doing donuts.
in South Los Angeles, a dangerous and deadly trend has emerged that takes over the city streets.
Social media is a big driver in setting up these street takeovers. It's originally started off as 3, 4, 5 cars in small streets in Los Angeles. Before you knew it, these Instagram accounts blew up. Now, 2,000 to 3,000 people can show up at one takeover. These people are going crazy. They're hanging out the windows of fast-moving cars while they're doing donuts in city streets. I've personally noticed when I've got to film some of these street takeovers, some of the most bizarre things that these guys are getting up to. You can see them setting off a fire hydrant and shooting water into a crowd of people and into the center where the cars are doing donuts.
These drivers are putting themselves and the crowd that cheers them on in lethal danger.
If you look carefully, you can actually see what appears to be a female actually fall out the window of the vehicle while it's moving.
Luckily, she was uninjured. She might not be so lucky next time.
The woman struggles to get to her feet with the threat of fast-moving vehicles speeding around her.
So what happens with these takeovers is law enforcement come in 3 or 4 cars and they put their lights and sirens on. The street racers take off and they all get a text message saying where the next location is going to be. And then they set up and they do it all over again. This is happening 3, 4, 5 nights a week in Los Angeles.
In what is becoming an escalated game of cat and mouse, law enforcement are dedicated to reclaiming these streets for public safety. Back east in Sherman Oaks, a massive fire has broken out, a seemingly normal night for these first responders.
I mean, this is a case where you show up to a story, it's not really great, you're kind of not in the mood, and then it turns into absolute gold.
It's also an average night for video journalist Howard, as he hears the call come in for a small, contained structure fire.
So it was a pretty quiet night, and I was close by. I thought I'd check out this small fire. So I rolled up, I'm kind of half-assing it, and then I hear someone shout. In the corner of my eye, I see a ball of fire. I turn around with the camera. There's a firefighter running down the street on fire. So my mind has instantly gone to, okay, pick up your game, Howard, get back on it. This is now a big story. Don't be lazy, move on it. So I've gone from something I'm really not bothering with to now, I got footage of a firefighter on fire.
The other firefighters spring into action, quickly dousing the flames on their teammate. But how did this happen?
Well, to fight a fire inside of a building, we have to first get to it, and a saw is a tool in the toolbox to do it. So obviously, it appears that that saw had leaked fuel, and a spark got to it, and it ignited.
So it's dribbling gas onto him. He brings it up to open a metal door, sparks fly, gas ignites.
Personal protective equipment is paramount to our safety. In this instance, where the firefighter is wearing the full personal protective equipment, it did its job, and he's unharmed.
It's just a great clip. He came over to me at the end of his shift and said, hey, you were the guy that got that on tape, right? I said, sure. You want a copy of it? Absolutely, here you go.
The blaze is controlled without further incident, and Howard finds himself with some once-in-a-lifetime footage.
I send it in. I knew it was kind of a big deal. How often do you see a firefighter on fire? Well, little did I know that this thing was going to go viral, and it blew up. I actually made more money on social media from this clip than I did from all of the sales combined to the local news. It became a running joke in the fire department. I mean, they actually requested that footage from me, I'm sure to have a laugh, but also as a training video.
And ultimately, it became a lessons learned. Why did this happen? How did it happen? How do we prevent it from happening in the future? We share that data with other departments.
This incident sparked an internal investigation and found that the saw was faulty. Howard's footage was central to assisting investigators to make sure something like this never happens again.